welcome to this meet and greet session with the CANNAVIST. My name is Roisin Delaney. I'm the editor of the CANNAVIST, and we're here today to talk all about CBD and self-care this winter. We're delighted to be joined by the founder and CEO of a wellness company in New York, Liweli. We're also delighted to be joined by a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and herbalist, Jillian Tuchman. And we're also pleased to present Dr. Swathi Varanasi, who is an integrative health specialist and cannabis pharmacist. So let's learn all about CBD for our health and well-being this winter.
In changing very small habits. And so, wellness doesn't have to be complicated. So we looked at CBD, which we thought is a really critical element of a healthy lifestyle. But the way that it's been typically brought to consumers, it can be expensive, inconvenient, messy, not taste good. So we really tried to make it delicious, delightful, portable, and easy to understand.
Wow. So yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the taste of CBD is a big turn off for a lot of people if they don't try the right product first. So that's one of the big things that is so important. What about your own kind of health and well-being? Has CBD influenced you? Has CBD kind of improved your overall lifestyle? Tell us a little bit about your use of CBD and why you chose to go down this route.
Well, I've been, passionate about integrative medicine and using food and supplements to, benefit my own health for about 2 decades now. As I grew older and now I have 2 children in my life, I've had to find ways of really simplifying my wellness routine because, most working parents only have a couple minutes at best each day to take care of themselves. So CBD has been a really powerful unlock because it impacts so many areas of your overall body through something called the Endocannabinoid System. So for me specifically, it's been really powerful for my sleep. I take CBD before bed, and I find that it really calms my mind, relaxes my body. I get woken up in the middle of the night by at least one child every night, and this really helps me fall back asleep, helps with those aches and pains, and with mood, which has been, obviously a huge consideration for everyone this year. It's been a really stressful year, and CBD has helped me kind of stay calm and positive.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, we think about our immune system and all of that goes towards protecting us and defending us for various different things. But then there's also stress, which can make us sick too. So that's a really good point. Let's maybe put this one on Dr. Swathi, if that's okay. So what are the main benefits that you're seeing in people's lives who are taking CBD compared to when they weren't taking CBD? What are people really gaining from CBD right now in terms of their health and well-being?
Overall, I mean, there's so much incredible research in terms of what's been published and what is ongoing. Right now, with the patients I've interacted, especially with everything going on in 2020, there's been so many questions surrounding, can CBD be helpful for me? Is that something that I can integrate into my life? Should this be a good option for me? And so I've really seen that it's helped people with very much like what was just discussed, with helping with sleep, really calming the mind and easing that anxiety or any anxiousness that someone has with what's going on now with jobs. I mean, there's just so much going on. So I think that it's been so helpful for those type of patients. And then also just CBD is an incredible anti-inflammatory, and it is linked to so many organ systems and just the overall functionality of so many neurotransmitters. And really, I think CBD is such a great example of how everything is linked in terms of bodily wellness and health overall. And so I just think that it's been such an amazing asset this year when I've approached patients or patients have approached me asking those type of questions. And a lot of the questions are even really, what can I do? Like, what can I add? And then CBD ends up being a part of the discussion, even if it didn't start like that.
That's a really good point. What's the impression people have of CBD when as a patient, when patients come to you and you might start talking about it or they might bring it up, is there a stigma or is there more of an openness to it now?
I think in terms of like the last year, maybe like the last 5 years, let's say, more and more people have either had family members or friends that have benefited from it. So I think people are starting to come around to the fact that it could be incredible. But I think overall there still is an underlying stigma. And I think a lot of that has to do with, some of the formulations have that very particular like botanical taste that people don't like, or it's only sold in certain locations and some people are not really comfortable with going to those locations. So I think that like Liweli, for example, is doing such a good job at making it accessible to people and making it just something like very simple that can be added to their daily routine. And I know with everything that happened this year, people have really had to shift their routine. So having the chance to add it this year, I think is amazing. And of course, New Year's resolutions are right around the corner too.
That's true. That's true. And we'll have a long list for 2021.
Yes.
Jillian, if I can come to you next. So everyone's talking about gut health at the moment. It's kind of always been there. We've always been told what to do, what not to do. Your gut is, your second brain. You should treat it, as you would anything else. I suppose my question for you is, it's a very trendy health topic, but is CBD gut friendly, or how can CBD kind of interact with the gut? Should we be taking CBD to help with things like IBS or, UC or various different things? What's the relationship there?
Sure. Well, I love this question, and I do love talking about gut health, and I love talking about CBD. And so I think to really understand this question more fully, you need to understand and know something about what's called the endocannabinoid system. And it's actually just as critical to our health as the digestive system or the nervous system. But because it wasn't discovered until relatively recently in the 80s, most common regular people don't necessarily know about it. But basically what that is, it's this unique network of kind of a lock and key system where there are these receptor sites, and then there are what's called endocannabinoids. Our body actually makes these chemicals that attach to these receptors and basically make so many processes in our body work, whether that's digestion, it regulates pain, it regulates heart rate, it's involved in regulating hunger and satiety. So a myriad of systems and processes are involved in this. There are an enormous amount of CB receptors in the gut. So CBD is a cannabinoid that's an exogenous cannabinoid. So let's say if I'm not making enough of my own cannabinoids, by supplementing it exogenously, it basically sates those receptor sites. There's a lot of speculation that a lot of symptoms, especially digestive symptoms such as poor motility, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, a whole wheelhouse of digestive complaints, are actually perhaps a deficiency in the body's own endocannabinoids. So thereby supplementing it with something like a CBD exogenously replaces what our body already actually needs itself. So when it comes to digestive and gut health, it's enormously helpful. Someone who is having trouble with gas, with bloating, supplementing it with a CBD can be very helpful and very gut friendly. And the other thing is not just looking at the actual digestive tract itself. We have to remember that there is a direct link between the brain and the gut. It's like a highway through the vagus nerve. And when we're talking about anxiety directly impacts our gut. So if we actually can use CBD as a tool to help us manage anxiety, that will also, by extension, help us manage our digestive issues.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and I think the brain and the gut relationship is just like fascinating as well. And I think you probably feel like we've been talking about this for years because of what you do, but I feel like it's only really in the last kind of 4 or 5 years that people have started to appreciate that relationship and fully kind of acknowledge it within themselves and their own health. I have a question here from a reader. I believe this came in over email when we were telling people that we were doing this panel today. Is it true that we have more endocannabinoid receptors in the gut compared to our brain or anywhere else in the body? Do you know if that's true?
We have so there are two types of receptors. We have CB1 and CB2. There's a higher concentration of CB2 receptors in our gut. There's a higher concentration of CB1 receptors in the brain. So both people are kind of right. It just depends on the receptor system. Okay,
great, perfect. Dr. Swathi, if I can just come to you next. The connection between CBD and medical cannabis. You're a cannabis pharmacist as well. So what is the kind of connection there between the endocannabinoid system CBD, medical cannabis, and our immune system as a whole? Why should we be taking something as like a supplement that has CBD in it, such as Liweli? How is that going to help our self-care this winter and boost our defenses?
So just as was discussed, I mean, there's more CB2 receptors in the gut. And so when it comes to that, the CB2 receptor is most closely associated with immune function and really helping support the immune system, whereas CB1 is more associated with central nervous system. So very different in that way. And so CBD has been shown to be an incredible modulator of the endocannabinoid system. And so it's actually kind of interesting because there's still a little bit of mystery when it comes to how CBD really interacts with those receptors, but we know overall that it helps increase what's called endocannabinoid tone, and that's really just the overall function of the endocannabinoid system. And so, as I mentioned before, it's an amazing anti-inflammatory, one of my favorites, honestly. And so I think that it can be great for so many people when they're trying to, look at something that can help decrease inflammation, and of course, decreasing inflammation helps support the immune system.
Absolutely. And Chondita, with your work and I suppose your brand and your products, what do you find people are coming to you or customers are saying that they have problems with and that your product is really making a difference to them?
There's certainly people who are coming to CBD who are just curious. They've heard of it before, and through our tone of voice, our packaging, our branding, we try to make it fun and accessible. So I would say curiosity is certainly one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the most immediate use case for most of our users is stress and anxiety. And what is unique about Liweli is that it's a water-soluble form of CBD, which means that it absorbs more readily into your system, and less of it is sort of processed through your digestive tract and not absorbed. And, part of the issue with tinctures, which is, traditionally how people are taking CBD, is that most people don't know how to take tinctures correctly. They're meant to be held under your tongue for 20 seconds. So between, the taste being unappetizing for a lot of people and then people not knowing how to take them properly, you see a lot of people just basically consuming it like a food, not getting an effect, and then sort of saying, well, CBD isn't for me. So with Liweli, what we find with our drink mixes is that within 15 to 20 minutes, a high portion of our users actually feel that relaxing effect. And that creates like a virtuous cycle where they want that feeling again, so they take it regularly. And that's how you get that long-term benefit on inflammation reduction that Swathi was mentioning, or all those other benefits on your digestive tract, for example, that Jillian was mentioning. So, it's a way of kind of creating a healthy habit that you don't have to remind yourself around. We also saw that, people have so many different supplements that they're trying to remember to take. So what we did with our second product, the Very Good Stuff drink mixes, we created an immune specific formula that incorporates vitamin C, turmeric, grapeseed oil, potassium, so that you can kind of cross two things off your list when you take your daily CBD. You've also now done something good for your immunity with a host of ingredients.
Actually, that's a really good point, because one of the questions we got in from one of our readers is quite a good question, actually. What does CBD go with? I mean, is it advisable to take CBD with other supplements like turmeric or curcumin? So, can you mix and match with other kind of supplements, other kind of herbs? Like what's the best kind of ratio to do that with? Or does it depend on what you're taking? Or, how should you kind of mix and match? Or, where can you go to get advice on this?
I can take that one.
Yeah, go for it.
So, overall, it's very patient dependent. It, of course, depends on a host of factors, from like lifestyle choices to nutrition to other medications that the patient is on. So it's highly patient specific. But that being said, turmeric or curcumin is a great example of what's called an adaptogen. I know that's kind of a fad term right now as well, but there's such amazing research when it comes to what adaptogens are and how they can help the body. And so incorporating CBD with an adaptogen like curcumin and grapeseed oil is another good example too. Putting all of those together can really help synergize in the body. And again, when people are asking what they should add to their regimen, my go-to answers are CBD and adaptogens, and Liweli has both of them in the same product.
Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously we're being spammed all the time about take this, take that, take this for this problem, and then you need to add this to that, and it's just as a consumer it can be quite overwhelming. You go to a health food store and you don't come out empty-handed, so it's quite overwhelming that there's so many things out there that we're being told to use. But it's really good advice. Thank you for that. Jillian, in your line of work, do you ever find people are a little bit hesitant to talk about CBD, or, how do you broach that?
Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes people are just absolutely gangbusters. Let me do it. I want it all. But a lot of times cost is very prohibitive, especially when we're talking about CBD. Even if the patient is really ready and really wants it and knows that they actually would benefit from it, you tell them a price of a traditional or typical CBD oil, and it could be in the hundreds of dollars. And that's just not something that's realistic or approachable for many people. And one of the reasons I love Liweli is that they actually created a formula that is really potent, it's really powerful, it's absorbed really well and really easily, and it's at a price point that is much more, for lack of a better word, digestible for most people than a lot of these other brands. So it really depends. Again, it really is very patient dependent. Some people are very much ready for it, and some people are hesitant. And the hesitation that I do see, aside from price, has to do with, well, how do I know if I'm getting the right dosage, and what happens if I take too much? And for the most part, studies have shown that people can take up to 1,200 milligrams of CBD, which is an enormous amount, daily for months without any side effects. But to really calm people's mind with a product like Liweli, anytime we have something that's water soluble, when our body doesn't use what it doesn't need, we actually are able to fully pee out, right? Output of urine basically eliminates excessive product. Similarly, with all of the water-soluble vitamins, the B's and the C's, what we don't need, we excrete. Compared to the fat-soluble vitamins like D's and K's, which actually, if we have too much, that actually can become almost toxic. So one of the reasons that I love the water solubility of Liweli is because there's an ease of mind to patients when they understand that there's really no risk there, because what your body doesn't need, it will just excrete through urine.
I really like that. That's really nice peace of mind, because you don't always know what you're getting with a lot of products, so that's really kind of reassuring. So that's really, really nice to know that that's what you're getting when you pick up a Liweli product. Let's also maybe direct this towards yourself, Jillian, because this is quite a good question that we got on Instagram actually last night. I want to start taking CBD, but it's an oil. Does this mean it's high in calories?
Well, Liweli actually isn't an oil, it's water-based, what we just said, but there are a lot of products out there that full spectrum, and they're oil. And it's completely understandable. Someone's like, oh my God, I don't want to eat like a stick of butter or whatever it is, right? But when we're talking about if someone really did want an oil rather than a water-based product, the amount of oil that you're consuming is so small. We're talking milliliters here. So it's certainly not something that you need to be concerned about when it comes to caloric intake.
Okay, I just want to go back to the benefits of the water soluble, if I can, that Chondita mentioned earlier. Dr. Swathi, if you wouldn't mind just telling us, how is a water soluble product such as the supplement that Liweli produces, how is that more beneficial to kind of our intake in our bodies compared to taking a tincture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are pros and cons when it comes to water solubility versus lipid solubility, or when it's more oil-based. But I think when it comes down to it, it's just so important that whatever product people are taking needs to be accessible, and it needs to be something that's not so completely foreign. I mean, the average person doesn't know that, and a lot of the labels actually don't even say that it needs to be taken sublingually, for example, with the oil. And so I think just taking all the guesswork out in that and just having it already ready in that packaged form, and then having it be something that, like, tastes really good. I think just that combination is amazing. But there are pros and cons, of course, when it comes to water solubility versus lipid solubility. And it comes down to how it's actually manufactured, because CBD itself is lipid soluble, but the way that it is put together in the Liweli product actually makes it very, very readily absorbable when it comes to water.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. Chondita, I'd just like to kind of finish up asking you a little bit more about the brand and what you have in store for 2021 to help people beat the stress, beat the anxiety. You know, we've got news of a vaccine coming, but we're all still a little bit, on edge about COVID and if it's safe to go outside and if it's safe to see relatives and all that kind of stuff at Christmas. And it's a very tricky time for a lot of people. So, from a kind of mental health point of view and looking at it that way, can you tell us a little bit about why people should try Liweli and what you have in store for next year?
Well, I'll speak first to the accessibility point because I think that that's key for trial as well. When you haven't tried something new, it can be really hard to commit the, $50 towards buying that full-size tincture. So one of the things that we said from day one is we want something that's like a $10 entry price point. Mm-hmm. So we have our starter packs, which give people 3 of our signature drink mixes. You can take them over 3 days and see how you feel. So we hope that gives people just an easy way to access and see if CBD is right for them. So I have some with me, so I'll show you guys.
Yeah,
so our signature drink mixes. One of the things that we had noticed in talking to people was that concerns around serving size and dosing was a huge issue. So we wanted to just make it easy and have them be pre-dosed, or rather preset serving. So we have a 20 milligram serving. Some people take 2. And, the brand is committed to making things super easy to take. So those you can take with water. We recently rolled out our stress melt product. So these are almost like a little mint. These are cherry flavored. We're coming out with a mint flavor as well. They have 20 milligrams of CBD each. They're even more on the go than the drink mixes, and just something that you can take when you want that kind of, I won't say instantaneous relaxation, but typically about a 15-minute onset time. So that's pretty good when you need relief fast. And for 2021, we're really committed to creating sort of solution-specific functional blends. We envision that in, the year 2030, people will be taking CBD perhaps the same way they do vitamin C. They'll understand that it's a critical part of your health and wellness routine. But there's a really steep education curve to get us from where we are now to there. So we think the best way to bring people into the category and to introduce them to the product is to create these functional blends that make it easy, because we will have already done the research and paired it with the appropriate level of additional botanicals to get the effect you want. So the first functional blend we rolled out was for immunity, because it's obviously very timely and on people's mind. The second one that we are working on right now is a focus blend. So it's, stepping away from that afternoon cup of coffee as a way to, stay engaged with the day, and really utilizing CBD and other ingredients, other nootropic ingredients and adaptogens as a way to keep your mind engaged throughout these, long days at home and beyond. We are hopeful that things are on the path back to normalcy, hopefully at some point next year. But that is our second blend. And then sleep will be sort of the third leg of the tripod for us in 2021. More than ever, I think people have realized that there's no heroism in getting like 4 hours of sleep a night. Everyone I know wants that solid 8, and realizes that it's really the foundation for good mood and good health. And we think CBD is such an important part of that. So we're developing a melatonin-free blend so that it's something you can take every day, and think of it as like a nitamin, something that When we did a lot of consumer research around people and sleep, and what we kept hearing was that people had guilt around taking sleep products every day. They felt they were forming a habit. But, people don't feel that way about taking vitamin D, let's say. They feel proud of themselves for taking their vitamins. So we thought, how can we transform this nightly ritual into something you can feel good about yourself for taking? So more on that in 2021.
I really like that, vitamin. That's a really good word. Yeah, sleep is such an important foundation. I mean, if we don't get enough sleep, we don't have a good day. So I think that's really, really important. Can I just ask as well, for anyone here in the UK who's watching, can you ship to the UK with your products?
Not right now from our direct-to-consumer site, but we are hoping to find retailer partners in the UK, both online and offline, so that we can get product to you guys next year.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait for that. I think they'll be really, really great. And I think Liweli will be a really good fit for the market here. So yeah, thank you so much to all of you for your time. Thank you for giving up a little bit of your afternoons. And we really appreciate it from the CANNAVIST. So thank you. And it was really nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.